Welcome back to week 2 of Tristan's spectacular picks for the 2025 NFL season. Last week, we began this beautiful series. If you were wondering how we, as in I did, I went 12 for 16, so 75% is a C in my books, so I'm fairly happy with that. I'm also running a league for pick'ems, so at the end, I'll show you the standings, and then I ended up winning both games in the fantasy football leagues I play in, so we're doing great. I'm also very much alive in the Eliminator challenge, so we're going to keep on going with that, and at the end of the video, we'll look at all of that, and then I'll share the highlights of my best moments with my live reactions when I rewatch week 1, just for the sake, so you have some entertainment for you to enjoy. Week 1 is also a friendly reminder that the NFL is extremely competitive. Anyways, we're going to go straight into picking and we'll get some humor along the way, so here we go. To open up Thursday Night Football, it's a difficult one right off the bat. Washington is visiting Green Bay, and I expect this game to have some high intensity. However, Washington was not the greatest in week 1, while Green Bay just did their thing, and I think they did a little more. And I was impressed how they did on both sides of the ball. So for me, I'm going with the Packers on this one. So sorry, Tom. Both of these divisional foes are looking for their first win of the season, while they both lost by a singular point in week 1. Baltimore just disappeared in the fourth quarter of their last game, and Cleveland honestly just held their own. I do get some deep down feelings now something could happen in this game where the Ravens end up losing again, but I am going to trust Baltimore to win. Next, we have the Jaguars and Bengals. The Jags played exactly how I expected they would last week with a great showing from Travis Hunter, while we didn't really see too much from the Bengals offensively against the Browns, which that was a divisional game in week 1. So in return, I expect Cincinnati to be much better, and they'll pull one off at home. Minus a loss on Thursday Night Football, the Dallas Cowboys were good, and they held their own in that game with a great showing from Javonte Williams after leaving Denver. They will go up against a divisional opponent, the New York Giants, who only scored 2 field goals last week. The connection from Wilson to Neighbors needs to be better because I'm just uncertain about it right now. I am going to have the Cowboys winning this game because of that. One team just fell to pieces, while it appears the other team is having problems adapting to new personnel. This sets up an intriguing matchup, and I'll say what I did last week, that Chicago can absolutely win this game, but they do not have what Detroit has at all right now. And I expect a much better showing for Detroit, while Chicago will give them a run for their money, but I am choosing Detroit here. It's a divisional matchup, which this one has a trend even back to the Tom Brady days when this game was played in Miami all the time. Both sides losses. Drake May wasn't great for the Patriots in week 1, while the Dolphins just ended up yanking their quarterback. So we saw Zach Wilson actually enter the game, and it was just a complete blowout. And by all means, I don't expect to see Wilson in week 2, but I do expect the Dolphins to be better. And as per this traditional matchup in Miami Gardens, I feel Miami is the proper decision. First off, the loss of George Kittle is massive, and we didn't see the best game from Brock Purdy either, and it does not sound like he's going to be playing as well. However, the tight end, who was second on the depth chart, ended up stepping up, and we did see some good things from McCaffrey notably. And the Saints didn't suck at all last week, but I feel they didn't show enough either. Either way, I still believe the 49ers can win this one and be better than they were in Seattle, but I am starting to have more questions going into this one. The Bills found a way to win against the Ravens, and that was wild to say the least. So they're 1-0 in return. They will be hosted by the Jets, coming off of a loss that they were pretty good in on the ground. And however, the Bills are just elite, so I am going to select Buffalo here, but this is going to be something to look out for because this game should be competitive. The new look Seattle Seahawks will be giving Pittsburgh a visit. DK Metcalf, it will be his first time playing against his former side, who had 83 yards for 4 catches against the Jets. Seattle may see Charbonnet lead the backfield and become the new number 1 running back potentially after scoring a touchdown and having 2 more touches than Kenneth Walker III. It is going to be something to look for, and as much as I believe this would be a tough matchup head-to-head, the defense for Pittsburgh, once again, is the difference, and that's why I will choose them. But they also need to allow less than 32 points. It's Cam Ward's home debut, and he honestly didn't have a bad first game in Denver as they run that game the whole time. And they'll be going up against a tough Rams side, however, that they only had 2 touchdowns, but they did have plenty of yardage. I do believe that Tennessee is going to try to show up at home because it is their home opener. But the Rams have Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams, who will do damage, so give me the Rams. Carolina still looks like the typical Carolina we thought of at the start of last season. Chuba Hubbard had a good game, and McMillan also had a good debut. And I know the Arizona Cardinals did not win in spectacular fashion, but I do believe they are ahead of the Panthers, having an experienced quarterback in Kyler Murray, thrown to Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr., and we also saw the rise of Trey Benson. And for me, it's Arizona Cardinals. If we see what we did last week, this game will be a big one. And it's not because John Elway is going up against Peyton Manning. Bo Nix did not perform to his standards, which I don't want the pressure a second-year quarterback at all. And Daniel Jones, on the other hand, is enjoying his environment. Denver needs to be better offensively as well, and that also includes when it comes to their play calls. But defensively, they were spectacular. I'm not so sure if the Colts will be able to handle what Denver is about to throw at their offense, so run it up, Denver. Broncos country, that's right. The rematch of the Super Bowl has arrived already in week 2. It's in Kansas City, and the Swifties will be going wild in the stands naked without a doubt when Travis Kelce makes a big play. However, that appears that's going to be the only good connection that Patrick Mahomes is going to have, as they are extremely weak at wide receiver, which is my concern, and it showed last week in Brazil, as well as their running game. The Eagles didn't play the best against the Cowboys, but that does not change the fact that they are going to be a top-tier football team. I expect the Eagles to crash the party once again like they did in the Big Easy. The games under the lights in Week 2 are intense, and that includes Atlanta visiting Minnesota for Sunday Night Football. We saw Atlanta play a good game, but they ended up costing themselves when it came down to kicking. On the other end, we saw Minnesota start off very rocky, but finish extremely strong in the last game played in Week 1. I want to see that momentum carried into Week 2, and I expect J.J. McCarthy's best game because it can kind of only go up from here, but it can also go down. So I expect it to go up. Michael Penix Jr. will do his thing, but I do feel the Vikings are going to come on top, and we're going to continue to see Young Koo have problems kicking footballs through the uprights. And behold, it's my very own Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Houston Texans. Tampa ended up finding a way to win with a weakened offense, while Houston could only hit 3 long field goals. And I'm just going to be straight up. The field goals are just not going to cut it for Houston. I do expect a better game offensively from this group. However, I expect Tampa to just run all over them because they have 5 players that can tear them up to pieces respectfully, both on the ground and in the air. It's a divisional matchup to end Week 2. And it's the Los Angeles Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders. Both teams are 1-0 with great team wins. However, the reason this is clear-cut is I believe the Chargers are already at a high competitive level with Jim Harbaugh at the helm, while the Raiders are continuing to figure things out with Carroll, and that's not a bad thing at all, though. The Raiders are also much more competent with young weapons, including Brock Bowers, but it will still be a learning process. I have the Chargers winning this one, but I would suspect that the Raiders are going to fight the entire game looking to win. For my tiebreaker, which is the last game of the day on Monday, which I just talked about, I have 47 points being scored with a 27-20 scoreline, and as mentioned, that's in favor of the Chargers. Here we go with the Elimination Challenge. All 3 entries that I've put into this video are still alive, which for each entry, we used Arizona, Denver, and Washington in Week 1, so we're still in this thing. We're going to do it again, and obviously we have to pick new teams. So I'm going to give you 3 teams. My first team is the LA Rams, and for me, this was the matchup I just had the least amount of questions about, as we did see great games from Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams when it came to yardage. And I believe the momentum is just going to carry on. We're going to see Devontae Adams get more involved, and We're going to see Matthew Stafford have a solid game. I think Tennessee will compete as best as they can, but it's not going to be enough. My second team is the Baltimore Ravens. It's a divisional matchup, which worries me, but it's also a home game, which they've won 4 of the last 5. But this series also has been split 50-50 the past 4 seasons, so it's something to be careful with. I hope this doesn't bite me here. My third team choice will be the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas has not lost since 2020 to the New York Giants. I was impressed with how Dallas played overall in Week 1, even though they lost. And I don't see really much of anything with the New York Giants. Once again, it is a divisional matchup, but if Dallas just does their thing, I will see them coming out of this one with their first win of the year. Now we're going to look at the league, and we do have the Tampa Boys tied for first. Max ended up winning last weekend's tiebreaker by 1 point, unfortunately. So we're not friends anymore, actually. Anyways, behind us, we have a herd of cows with another slightly off the pace. And my mom picked the first game, and she forgot to pick the rest. So I'm actually going to text her right now to do that. With that being said, when everyone who selected for a match voted, we went 100% on 7 out of 16 games, which isn't terrible, but technically it would be 1 to 16 because of my mom, but you get the point. And then when it came down to when it was just straight up 0%, aka we all sucked, it ended up being just 2 out of the 16 games, and that notably included Miami at Indianapolis. We'll see if we can improve these scores, which I honestly think they are quite good. And it is fun to put these stats together and just to compare and contrast, and hopefully I win in Week 2 over everyone. So Max, please lose. Now let's see how this guy reacts to what he said prior to Week 1. I don't feel Kansas City has the ideal wide receivers and running back at the moment. And we also have Rashid Rice suspended for the stuff he's been doing. But, it's all just going to take Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and so I'm going to go with Kansas City just to play it safe. The first Sunday game features, and Tampa Bay has found ways to lose to Atlanta in recent memory.
Not this time.
However, I would still take Tua over Daniel Jones by all means. Miami does have a lot of offensive weapons, and the Colts offense does look fairly new. And Miami should be able to defend better as well and give the Colts new rookie tight end some problems too. So I'm going to go with Miami.
None of that happened.
And I do believe the Steelers will have more passing yards in this game, but the Jets will have more yards on the ground.
Told you.
And both teams do have good defenses. The Detroit Lions lost both their offensive and defensive coordinators over the offseason, meaning things may look a lot different. I still believe we're going to see some risky play calls, which is what I am feeling like this game's going to be decided by a field goal. And I'm siding with Baltimore's new kicker that silenced the crowd again. And lastly, Monday Night Football feature. However, I'm still going to stick with my gun. I'm going to say the Vikings win. But do not be surprised, however, if Chicago ends up pulling an upset to start the year 1-0.
I'll pull that one off.
Anyways, that will conclude Week 2. I will be able to have full eyes on all the games, as I won't be over the pond like I was last week in Romania, and NASCAR won't be in the way as they race on Saturday night. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in Week 3.